This is day 20. I'm reading Reader Come Home by Marian Wolf, page 86. When language and thought atrophy, when complexity wanes and everything becomes more and more the same, we run great risks in society politic, whether from extremists in a religion or political organizations, or less obviously from advertisers. I thought it. I thought I read this. I'll just keep repeating. Whether cruelly enforced or subtly reinforced, homogenization in groups, societies, or language can lead to the elimination of whatever is different or other. The protection of diversity within human society is a principle that was embodied in our Constitution and long before that in our genetic cerebral diversity. As described by the genetics futurists and most recently Toni Morrison in her book The Origin of Others, diversity enhances the advancement of our species development, the quality of our life on our connected planet, and even our survival. Within this overarching context, we must work to protect and preserve the rich, expensive, unflattened use of language. When nurtured, human language provides the most perfect vehicle for the creation of uncircumscribed, never before imagined thoughts, which in turn provide the basis for advances in our collective intelligence. The converse is also true, with insidious implications for every one of us. Not long ago, I discussed these admittedly dark and heavy thoughts in the lightest of settings. A summer conversation on a walk in the French Alps with the Italian publisher Dr. Aurelio Maria Motola. As we walked higher and higher to where the trees began to thin, I told him of my worries about the possible effects of the culture's trend towards language homogenization. From the narrowing of an author's word choices to briefer manuscripts to a more constrained use of syntactic complexity and figurative language, both of which require background knowledge that can no longer be assumed. What then will be the fate, he asked, of books and poems filled with metaphors and analogies whose reference are no longer shared knowledge? What would happen if a culture's shared repertoire of allusions, metaphor from the Bible, myths and fables, remembered lines of poems, characters from stories begins to shrink and gradually disappear? What will happen? This learned publisher who reads in multiple languages asks if the language of books no longer fits the culture's cognitive style, fast, heavily visual, and artificially truncated. Will writing change and with it the reader, the writer, the publisher, language itself? Are we each witnessing in our different professions the beginning of a retreat from more intellectually demanding forms of language until, like the ill-fated Procrustean bed, it conforms to the imperceptibly narrowing norms of reading on ever smaller scenes? We stopped somewhere in the beautiful landscape and tried to rescue our walk from the unwelcoming direction of our thoughts. Isn't the nature of language to expand and change each epoch? Each epoch? We asked each other, isn't the very history of writing our own epoch's best reassurance? Doesn't the plasticity of the reading brain provide the ideal mechanism to accommodate diverse modes of reading and writing? We must not lose what we have gained, I said softly, as I much to you, dear readers, as to my then silent companion of that summer walk. Some of you, no doubt, will think that I protest too much, and that only the elite part of any population will miss the shelves of older books and poems that pass out of favor with clockwork regularity age after age, generation after generation. But it is the very opposite of elitism that propels my worries. I write this book and conduct my research today only because the dedication of my parents and of a few deeply committed teachers from the School Sisters of Notre Dame in a 2-room, 8th grade schoolhouse gave me reason as a child to read the great literature of the past. Only those books prepared me not to leave the coal miners and farmers in my tiny Midwestern town, but to understand each of those still dear people and the world outside El Dorado, Illinois, in a whole new ways. Words, stories, books allowed me to have not so much a quiet eye, never, perhaps, my forte when I was young, but a widened gaze at worlds I could never have imagined from my very small vantage point over Walnut Street, where I met Emily Dickinson, Charlotte Bronte, and Margaret Mitchell for the first time. As Alberto Manguel remarked about his own similarly book-built knowledge store, everything proceeds in geometric progression based on what is known and what is remembered every time we read something new. Okay, that's a bit controversy a statement by the Dr. Wolf. I mostly agree with her, but I think she was worried about vanishing all about kind of all those worried about losing all this metaphor that we actually learn from books, like from stories, all those things. But aren't we building our own metaphor and analogies? Like, think about all those internet meme. Of course, it will be shared within some very specific groups, I would say, maybe even specific races, specific generations, and so forth. But still, aren't all the great stories and great all those metaphor coming from stories only shared by some people in history in society? We never had those metaphor really widely available. So I think I don't know. I should recap my thoughts a lot. Anyway, thanks so much. It's getting a bit longer than used to be. So this is Minky, and please correct me if you can. Thank you.